The sun had begun its slow descent, drenching Crestwood Heights in a golden glow. Khalil rolled down his window, letting the crisp autumn air fill the van. It was his last stop of the day, one final package before he could head home, kick off his sneakers, and collapse onto the couch. His phone buzzed. Route updated. Khalil glanced at the screen. The GPS suggested a quicker way through Willow Lane, a narrow street that curved between two long rows of pristine, suburban houses. He hesitated. He usually stuck to the main roads when making deliveries in neighborhoods like this. Crestwood Heights was one of those places where people noticed when a black man was somewhere they didn't expect him to be. He had heard the stories. Hell, he had lived them. The suspicious glances, the nervous homeowners peeking from behind curtains, the phone calls that started with, "I don't know if this is anything, but there's a man." But it was late, and he was exhausted. If he followed the shortcut, he could shave 10 minutes off his drive. 10 minutes closer to home. With a sigh, he turned onto Willow Lane. The street was eerily quiet. Not a single car in motion. Every house stood like a picture from a real estate ad. White columns, perfectly mowed lawns, fall wreaths hanging on identical black doors. Everything neat, still, too still. Then he saw him. A white man in his late 40s stood in his driveway, arms crossed over his chest. He had the look, trim, graying hair, polo tucked into khakis. The kind of guy who coached his kid's baseball team but yelled at waiters. Khalil had dealt with him before. Not him exactly, but men like him. As Khalil pulled to a stop, the man didn't move, didn't wave, just stared. Khalil exhaled, shaking off the feeling creeping up his spine. Drop the package. Leave. Simple. He grabbed the brown box from the passenger seat and stepped out. The moment his sneakers hit the pavement, the man moved. "Hey!" The sharpness of the voice made Khalil stop mid-step. He turned slowly, keeping his expression neutral. "Yes, sir?" The man was already striding toward him. "What are you doing here?" Khalil blinked, then lifted the package. "Just delivering." The man's eyes flicked to the label, then back to Khalil's face. "I've never seen you around here before." Khalil forced a polite smile. "I'm on a new route today." He motioned toward the house across the street. "This is my last stop. I'll be out of here in 30 seconds. The man didn't move. Instead, he narrowed his eyes. "Who do you work for?" Khalil held up his badge, displaying the company logo. The man barely glanced at it. "You people have been casing this neighborhood," he muttered. Khalil stiffened. "There it is." "I'm sorry," he said carefully. "I've seen the reports," the man continued, stepping closer. "Packages stolen, suspicious vans. We know what's been going on." Khalil felt the slow burn of frustration in his chest. He swallowed it down. "Not worth it." "I'm just doing my job," he said, stepping around him. And then, click. Khalil turned. The man was holding up his phone, grinning. "Just for safety," he said, shaking the phone slightly. "Better hope you don't show up on the neighborhood watch page." Khalil clenched his jaw. Breathe. Don't react. He placed the package on the porch, snapped a proof of delivery photo, and turned toward his van. Then the man chuckled. "Next time, we might not just take pictures." Khalil froze, just for a second. A slow, cold anger crawled up his spine. He wanted to say something, to ask, "What do you mean by that?" to push back. But he knew how this played out. Instead, he got into the van and gripped the wheel. His knuckles turned white. He drove away. The man's laughter still ringing in his ears. He had no idea this was only the beginning. 2. Khalil barely slept that night. He tried. He really did. Laid in bed, phone off, eyes closed, willing himself to let it go. But the words wouldn't leave him. Next time we might not just take pictures. They curled around his brain like smoke, refusing to clear. He had dealt with racist nonsense before, but something about this felt different, more deliberate. When his alarm finally blared at 6 a.m., it barely startled him. He was already awake, staring at the ceiling, jaw tight. He sighed, rolled over, and grabbed his phone. First thing he saw? 3 missed calls from an unknown number. His stomach twisted. Then, ping, a text. He frowned and unlocked his screen. The message contained a screenshot. A blurry photo of him standing in front of that house on Willow Lane, package in hand. And underneath it, bold black letters. Suspicious man spotted in Crestwood Heights yesterday evening. Possible package theft. Neighbors, stay vigilant. Khalil sat up so fast his head spun. What the hell? Another ping. A message from DeAndre. Bro, check the comments. His fingers felt stiff as he clicked the link. The post was on some local neighborhood watch app, one of those places where paranoid homeowners shared grainy doorbell cam footage and complained about teenagers playing music too loud. The first comment was bad enough. Saw him yesterday. Looked like he was checking out houses. These delivery guys steal all the time. Then another. If I see him again, I'm calling the police. And another. Y'all are too nice. A warning shot will make him think twice. Khalil's blood turned to ice. A warning shot. Someone was suggesting shooting him for doing his damn job. His hands were shaking now, but he kept scrolling. We need to start taking back our neighborhood. They don't belong here. No way he was just a delivering. Each comment made his skin crawl. DeAndre sent another message. They coming for you, man. Khalil's pulse hammered. He ran a hand over his face, trying to push down the fear bubbling in his chest. This was bad. Really bad. Another message came through, this time from his supervisor, Marcus. Hey, can you come in early today? Got something we need to talk about. Khalil's gut clenched. He didn't like the sound of that. The warehouse felt different when he walked in, quieter. Eyes flicked toward him, then away just as quickly. Marcus was waiting by his office. Stocky, mid-40s, always kept a Bluetooth in his ear like he was on some secret mission. His usual easy grin was missing. Come in, he said, closing the door behind Khalil. Khalil sat, hands clasped. What's up? Marcus sighed, rubbing a hand over his beard. Look, man, you know I got your back, right? Khalil's stomach dropped. Marcus slid his phone across the desk. The same damn screenshot. The same post. Khalil exhaled sharply. You've got to be kidding me. Marcus leaned forward. They sent this to the company. Khalil's breath caught. Who's they? Some concerned residents. Made a complaint. Said you were lurking around properties and that packages have gone missing in that area. Khalil clenched his jaw. I take a photo of every damn delivery. There's proof. Marcus nodded. I know, and I told them that. But corporate doesn't want trouble. They told me to look into it. Khalil's hands balled into fists. Look into what? I was doing my damn job. Marcus held up a hand. I hear you, but I need you to be smart. Take a different route. Don't go back to that area for now. Khalil stared at him. So they win? Marcus sighed. It's not about winning, man. It's about keeping you safe. Khalil swallowed hard. He could argue. He could fight this. But would it change anything? He stood. That all? Marcus hesitated. Then, just be careful out there. Khalil left the office, jaw tight, heartbeat pounding. Outside, DeAndre was waiting, arms crossed. I told you, DeAndre muttered. They don't play fair. Khalil exhaled slowly. Yeah, I know. But one thing was for sure. This wasn't over. 3. Khalil wasn't stupid. He knew what could happen if he went back to Crestwood Heights. He had seen the news, heard the stories of black men minding their business one second and staring down a gun barrel the next. He should have stayed away. But he didn't. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't even about proving a point. It was about principle. About the fact that if he let them win, let them push him off his route, out of his job, out of a neighborhood he had every right to be in, then they would do it again, and again, and again. So 2 days later, when his route put him right back near Crestwood Heights, Khalil squared his shoulders, took a deep breath, and went. This time, he was ready. His phone was mounted on his dashboard, camera set to record. If anything happened, he'd have proof. The first few stops were normal. He dropped off packages, took his photos, moved on. No one bothered him. Maybe, just maybe, it had blown over. And then he saw the house, his house, the same colonial-style home on Willow Lane, the same porch, the same man, standing in the driveway, arms crossed, waiting. Khalil's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. His instinct screamed at him to keep driving. But the package in his passenger seat had this exact address printed on it. Someone inside that house had ordered something, and it was his job to deliver it. Just do your job. Get out. He exhaled, grabbed the box, and stepped out. The man smiled this time, that smug, knowing kind of smile, like he'd been expecting him. Khalil's stomach twisted. Back again? The man said, voice casual, but his eyes were sharp. Khalil ignored him, kept walking toward the porch. You must really like this neighborhood, the man continued, his tone dripping with something just beneath the surface. Or maybe you just don't listen. Khalil set the package down, snapped his proof of delivery photo, turned back toward his van, and then, bang! A loud, sharp crack split the air. For half a second, Khalil's brain refused to process it. Then he saw the mailbox beside him, smashed open, the metal bent and warped where something had hit it. His breath caught. A gunshot. Someone had just fired a gun. At him? Near him? He didn't know. His ears were ringing. His heart was a hammer in his chest. Slowly, he turned. The man hadn't moved. Still standing in his driveway. Still smirking. But now there was someone else. A second man, further down the street, holding a shotgun. Khalil's pulse roared in his ears. His body screamed at him to run, to get in the van and peel out of there. But he forced himself to stay still, to breathe. The man in the driveway cocked his head. Maybe now you get the message. Khalil swallowed hard. Every muscle in his body was coiled, his instincts screaming. He could feel his legs twitching, ready to bolt, but he didn't. Instead, he pulled out his phone, slowly, deliberately, held it up so the camera was visible. You want to say that again? He asked, voice steady. A flicker of something, uncertainty, crossed the man's face. Then, as if on cue, a car turned onto the street. A neighbor, maybe. Someone who had no idea what was happening. The second man lowered the shotgun. Khalil didn't wait. He backed toward his van, never turning his back on them, heart pounding so hard it hurt. He climbed in, locked the doors, hands shaking as he hit record on his dash cam. And then, without another word, he drove. Back at the warehouse, Khalil sat in his van, hands still gripping the wheel long after the engine had shut off. He should call the cops. He should tell Marcus. He should do something. But all he could do was sit there, chest rising and falling, ears still ringing from the gunshot. His phone buzzed. A message from DeAndre. You good? Khalil stared at the screen, thought about everything that had just happened. The man's smirk, the shotgun, the warning. Then he typed back, Nah, man, I think this is just getting started. 4. Khalil wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. He had spent the entire night replaying the moment over and over, the crack of the gunshot, the twisted grin on that man's face, the way the second man had held that shotgun like it was a message carved in steel. Stay out, or else. By morning, his fear had hardened into something sharper, something heavier. He was done being intimidated. He was done letting people like them control where he could and couldn't go. So, he did the one thing they didn't expect. He went back. This time, he wasn't alone. DeAndre rode shotgun, jaw tight, eyes scanning the street like a soldier on patrol. In the back seat, Marcus sat stiffly, tapping his knee. He hadn't wanted Khalil to go back, had practically begged him to report it to corporate, let the police handle it. But Khalil knew better. He knew how these things played out. No cameras, no evidence. Then it was just his word against theirs. And in a neighborhood like Crestwood Heights, where the homeowners all looked the same, dressed the same, voted the same, he already knew whose word would matter more. So they came prepared. Dash cam, on, phones, recording. DeAndre's second phone, live streaming, just in case. By the time they turned onto Willow Lane, Khalil's pulse was a war drum in his ears. The street was just as quiet as before, too quiet. Then he saw him, standing in the driveway, same as last time, arms folded, smirking, like he'd been waiting. Khalil parked, stepped out, his breath slow and steady. He could feel Marcus and DeAndre behind him, their presence like a wall at his back. The man's smirk faltered, just a little. Well, he drawled. Didn't think you'd be dumb enough to come back. Khalil didn't blink. Package for you. He held up the box. The man scoffed. You think this is a game? Khalil stayed silent, just watching, waiting. The man glanced past him, eyes flicking to DeAndre, then Marcus. His lip curled. You brought backup? DeAndre chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Nah, just witnesses. The man's smirk faded completely. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-40s, blonde, expression tight with confusion. She glanced at Khalil, then at the box in his hands. Is that my package? She asked. Khalil nodded. Yes, ma'am. She frowned. Then why are you standing there? Just drop it off. Khalil's chest tightened. He held her gaze. I tried last time. Her eyes flicked to her husband, to the way he was standing, the tension in his jaw. Something shifted in her face. Greg, she said slowly. What did you do? Greg. So that was his name. Greg scowled. Nothing, but his wife wasn't stupid. She took a step forward, snatching the package from Khalil's hands. I've been waiting for this since Monday, and you're out here harassing the damn delivery driver? Greg's face burned red. I wasn't. He's got a job to do, Greg, she snapped. Or did you think I was stealing my own damn order? Silence. Greg's mouth opened, then closed. Khalil watched as his wife turned on her heel and stormed inside, slamming the door behind her. Greg's fists clenched at his sides. For the first time, he looked small. Khalil tilted his head. Guess we're done here. And just like that, he turned and walked away. Didn't run, didn't rush, just walked. Because he wasn't the one who needed to be afraid. He climbed into the van. DeAndre and Marcus followed. Greg stood in the driveway, face burning, shoulders stiff. He didn't say another word, didn't need to. Khalil had already won. As they pulled off, DeAndre let out a low whistle. Damn, that was satisfying. Khalil exhaled. His body was still buzzing, but for the first time in days his chest didn't feel so tight. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Proud of you, man. Khalil just nodded. It wasn't about pride. It was about something bigger than that. It was about showing them, showing himself, that he didn't have to live in fear. Not today. Not ever. And as they drove away from Crestwood Heights, the sun finally broke through the clouds. The storm was over, at least for now.